It's time, it's Roundup time, as Big Van Vader would say, except he didn't do Roundup reviews. But today we're taking a look at quite a few things. This one's more an eclectic Roundup today. We're taking a look at Unconscious Minds, the Nightmare expansion. We're taking a look at the Bambu Lab P1S Printer. Yes, it is that time to talk about the greatest printer I've ever owned, bar none, not even close, to the point where I have literally wanted to get rid of the rest of my printers. That's a big statement. We're talking about the Marvel HeroClix Spider-Verse, and that one's important because I'm going to talk about review philosophy when I do that with me, because that game got me into gaming, and then whatever else I think of while I'm doing this. So let's start, first of all, by talking about the Unconscious Minds Nightmares expansion. Now, again, if you've seen the review recently, you'll know I talked about the fact that I'm currently in class for licensed marriage family counseling at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Like, this is my wheelhouse. I literally love talking about theories and treatments and catharsis and all that stuff, all the history of it, you know, through Freud, through Adler, all the way up through Jung, all the way up through the Beck Society of Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, ACT, you know, brief solutions focused. I love all that sort of stuff. It's been a huge kind of like major thing for me. No, I'm not stopping being an illusionist. We're going to do both, and I'm going to enjoy it very much, which is why I loved Unconscious Minds so much. It is very much like similar to how I feel about Tricarion, not quite as much, because Tricarion, you know, as an illusionist, as a professional illusionist for the last 15 years, I have loved anything to do with magic and illusion. So that's similarly how I felt about Unconscious Minds. So I really like that. So if you haven't seen that review, go check that out. But the Nightmares expansion, boom, does some things that are pretty interesting. It does that thing where it makes the game a little more surreal and wild. So Unconscious Minds is very much straightforward. You're doing therapy, you're doing psychoanalysis, you're helping with dream therapy, you're helping free association. Essentially, you're trying to help your clients reach catharsis and move past their issues and cure them. But you're also trying to publish books, and you're trying to do treatises, and you can cite other people. So there's a whole lot of grab bag, point salad mechanics in Unconscious Minds that's pretty straightforward to the theme. Well, Nightmares comes in and goes, hey, you know, all those mechanics you just learned that were pretty straightforward-ish with your wheel and everything, we're about to kick that out the window, because now you've got cracked reels, you've got delving into insanity, you've got the notion that you too can fly too close to the insane sun and your wheel can get cracked. But just so you know, there are emotional support pets in there that kind of help, like cats and dogs. So this is a wild expansion. This is not an expansion I'm going to pick up and play every time, because it changes the game. Now, this is kind of like the opposite of Champions of Midgard, where the expansion kind of fixed a lot of things. This is like, okay, I love the original. I want to do something wild. Let's do that. It's not a module thing like, well, I mean, they're modules, but it's not like River Valley Glassworks, where it's like, well, I'm just going to always play with the modules. This one's going to be that time where I go, okay, do we want to play with Nightmares, or do we want to play the regular game? Because it does change it enough. So just know that that is the Unconscious Mind Nightmares expansion. It continues on with the gorgeous art style, just an incredible looking game. So that takes us to the HeroClix Spider-Verse review. Now, I love HeroClix. So I'm going to drop in, you know, me opening this brick and talking about that. All right, so we've got some crazy pieces out here. We've got a Chase, we've got a Super Rare, there's a Ghost Spider. We got this dude here. Check out the wall right there. What's his name? He's The Wall. Yeah, not like WCW 1997 The Wall, but The Wall. And then we've got a Chase.
We got a really rare one.
Yeah, it's a Chase Spider-Man. We've got a Chase Spider-Man with Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet on there. Pretty sweet stuff. And then all sorts of good stuff in here. Now, there's Iceman from the X-Men, or the animated series. We have the Iconics Captain America from the ice here. This is incredible if you can't see it. It's literally Captain America frozen in ice, and then the one standing next to him. So these are really cool, the Iconics. But more importantly, I want to talk about HeroClix because it gets me into review philosophy. Now, if you're watching this, you're thinking, Brian, you've been doing videos for a long time on the Dice Tower. I have. In fact, I started thinking about it. Besides Z and Sam being back around, and obviously Tom, of people consistently putting up videos every single week on the Dice Tower, I am the longest. So besides Z and Sam being around, I'm the one who's been around the longest on the Dice Tower, which is fun to say because I'm a part-timer. I'm not there all the time, you know? So people think about that. They're like, Brian, we've seen you for a long time, but I'm here in Mobile. I'm not at the studio, so it's a little different. But the philosophy I've always had is I'm going to talk about games I enjoy. I'm going to talk about games that I really like, which is why HeroClix got me into gaming. So you would think I'd be into kind of heavier war games because of that. But it was this introduction to gaming through seeing these painted miniatures that got me into wanting to play these other games. And we went from there to Ticket to Ride to playing Catan with some friends. Yes, I say Catan, not Catan, because we're in the South and we say it how that way we want to. It's playing with friends. And what I really loved about it is it connected us with friends in a way that you always have something to talk about. You have one of those things where somebody invites you to their house, or you invite them to your house because you're supposed to. But you don't really have as much to talk about because you don't have everything in common with them yet. So you bring out a board game. You play just one. You play So Clover. And it really breaks down the walls and barriers of maybe awkward conversation, maybe shyness. That's what's really great about gaming. So when it comes to reviews, I've always wanted to shoot games that I really like. Now, you'll see me do games that I don't like. It's rare because typically I'm going to judge a game based on, first appearances, first how I played it, and go, do I really want to take the time to play this for review? Because playing a game is not the same as playing it for review. You play a game with friends, you can go over to their house, you can play a game and just forget about it if you didn't like it. With a review, you got to play it and play it enough to review it and play it some more and think through it, think about all the different rubric systems. That's something we set up in 2024. It was Carla's idea to do a rubric system where the scores are more fair, but it kind of gives you, 7 categories, break that down, give you the average of those categories, which then again gives me a score that is, I can stand behind more and go, well, no, this is my number and here's why. But at the end of the day, reviews are subjective, right? I may rank something like art as a 9 that you think's a 6. In fact, I ran into this with lemons and oranges, or oranges and lemons, right? I thought the art was great. It was fantastic. You may look at that and go, that's dull, bland Euro, right? Vincent Dutrait and the guy who does the art for, Western Legends and the Undaunted games. Those are my 2 favorite board game artists. They might not be your cup of tea, right? You may like something else. So even though those categories give me a more objective standard, reviews are still subjective, which is why I find it so funny sometimes when people argue about your opinion of a board game. And that's the other thing. I think too often what is this hobby called? Board gaming, right? Too many times we take this too seriously. Now, is it serious? Yeah, because there's a lot of fun things involved with it. But is it serious? No. A board game's not going to rescue a child out of a burning building. A board game experience it may pull you out of depression. It may pull you out of a funk. But that's why I've always been intrigued by how angry people get about board game comments and reviews. Go look at my Ivion review and see that I really set a fire there. But at the end of the day, games are games. They're meant to be fun. And sometimes I think we lose the fun because of the internet gaming community is so vitriolic no matter what we do. And you could fill in the middle initial anything. Internet wrestling community, internet blank community is vitriolic because it's meant to put a screen between you and a real person to where you can say whatever you want, mean, nasty, hateful, and they don't have any recourse. And then you meet them in person and you shake hands and high five and go, oh, it's so great to meet you, as is life. I've had some horrible comments said about me on the internet, and then someone said, oh, I met him at a convention, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, and how was that experience? It's like, actually very, very friendly and nice. That's the difference between the internet and the real world. So remember, the real world is not the internet and not vice versa. So the vitriol, the craziness about board game reviews, I think is overblown and unnecessary. Just play what you like. If I don't like a game, play it. If Tom hates a game and you like it, play it. No one's telling you you can't or can play a game based on a review. They're objective. They're not objective in any way. They're subjective tastes and standards. I love smash burgers. Carla likes a good fat grilled cheeseburger. Those are 2 subjective tastes. And that's what it boils down to. Which brings me to the last thing I want to talk about today, which I'm going to go ahead and show a couple things here because this is a piece. Right? It's a chunk. Let me put it back together. I've dropped it all over. The Bambu Lab P1S. Now, if you know, I've been doing reviews of 3D printers for a long time on the Dice Tower. I think I was the first and only for a long time talking about 3D printing on the Dice Tower. Maybe not the very first, but definitely the only for a while. And I would print on Enders. I would print on resin printers, and I would talk about the beauties of resin printing. But this helmet right here, this has 0 paint on it. Now you see the texture. You see the fineness of it. This has 0 paint. It has magnets, which hold the stuff on, which I really like. But this was accomplished with the Bambu Lab. Now, this you'll notice has pieces that are only one color. So this is just yellow, this is just a dark blue, this is just white. What's interesting though, is if I wanted to, and currently I'm printing it behind me, a Daredevil helmet, which is black and red. It will print multiple colors on it. It will print the black, it will print the red, all in one big print. Now, why I like this, I don't have to paint this. The lines are so fine on this print that you can't tell this is 3D printed. This looks like a prop that you picked up somewhere. And I'm talking about when you're looking close, you can't see layer lines. Which brings me to this. This is the Rings of Power Season 2 somebody's helmet. You know what I mean? I don't want to spoil anything. But this is the crown that happens in Season 2. There is not a bit of finishing done to this. I printed it and I put spray paint on it. Used to, in order to get this kind of quality without having to do any kind of sanding or finishing, I would have to take it, coat it with resin, sand the resin off, spray paint it, sand that down, spray paint it. This is literally just printed and hit with spray paint, and it looks like gunmetal. It looks ancient. It looks amazing. If you see this in person, you cannot see layer lines. That's where we are with FDM printing now, thanks to the Bambu Lab P1S printer. To the point where I'm going to get rid of a lot of printers that I have. I just don't need them anymore, because I think Jeff Rademacher, one of my good friends who talks about this, he said the printers that you have, like the Ender 3 that I've had several of, they're for people who like to tinker with 3D printers, and that be the hobby. 3D printing and machines is the hobby. Bambu Lab is made for people who want to print things. I think Joey's video talked about, have you ever had a printer that just works? And my answer was no, I have not had a printer that just works. I mean, you can look behind me, you can see the Gambit multicolor. Let me show this off real quick. This is pretty sweet. Flat art with multicolors and shading. And this is a 4-color example of what it can do. And there's this thing called HueForge where it prints like layers of so thin that you can see through colors, and you take 4 colors and make it look like it's, you know, hundreds of colors. Back there, I've got the X and 0 little stands. That's for my brother's birthday. Spoiler, Dave, if you're watching this. The amazing thing is I have printed probably 30 things on this printer already. Some multicolor, some single color, and I have not had a single problem. Everything just prints perfect from the push of the button go. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to tinker and level and anything. This is a game changer. It's pricey. I'm not going to lie. The machine is not cheap. However, if I would have taken 2 or 3 of the machines that I've bought over the years to try to finish projects, I could have just not bought those, bought another one of these, and never worried about the countless hours wasted tinkering with 3D printers. Now, at the time, I didn't know any better because there was no other option. And the thing is, resin printing to me was the gold standard for a while. I was going to print everything in resin. I was going to do it where, you know, you've got this beautiful, perfect resolution miniatures resin. Now, maybe for printing tiny little miniatures, resin's still the way to go. But then you have to soak it in alcohol. You have to let it sit in UV light. It just got to the point where it was so unenjoyable to print with resin that I just stopped doing it. Now, with this Bambu Lab, the print quality is so incredible. You literally can't tell this is 3D. Like if I showed you this helmet in person, you could not tell it's 3D printed. It would look like a prop that was bought. Yeah, you can go ahead and add weathering and paint and all that to it, but you don't have to. That's what's amazing about this printer. Yes, a little pricey. I admit that. However, would I rather go back now, trade in 3 of my old Enders for one of these? Absolutely. If I had to start over again, I would own just one of these, maybe, or maybe 2. I mean, another case in point. This is a Scarlet Witch thing, which I've printed hundreds of before, right? I don't know how many I printed. This one doesn't have any paint on it, and the filament is matte. So the color's not quite right for what I would do. I would actually use this cherry red back here. But yet again, you can't really tell this is 3D printed in person. Would I like to start over? Yes, because I used to print these in 9 hours. This took 3.5. And I can view it from my phone on the app. I can watch the progress. I can print stuff from afar. If there's nothing on the build plate, I can just click print from another state or another city where I am, and it just prints perfectly. So all that to say, this long Roundup, this is the best printer I have ever owned, and 100% the printer I recommend. I will not recommend anything else than a Bambu Lab printer from this point on. Unless something comes out and blows it out of the water, I wish I could have the year's time and money back to just invest in the Bambu Lab printers. No, they're not a paid sponsor. No, this is not a review machine. I bought this with my own money, and it's the best machine I've ever had. So if you're wanting to print things, and you know you're going to print a lot of things, and you want to print multiple colored things, and you want just the ability to print perfect things, get a Bambu Lab. It just doesn't get any better. This is the new gold standard. It is the best printer I've ever used. So long Roundup meander today, taking a look at several different things, but I just wanted to get a lot of the stuff off my chest, just the review philosophy and all that. So had fun doing this. Hopefully you're watching this, and if you're not, well, then if you have questions, come ask me at West this week. So I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and X at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.